morning, everyone. Welcome to Unity Spiritual Center of Windsor. My name is Linda Toden. Our guest speaker for today is past Unity of Windsor member Wendy Karr. Her talk title is Unity's Great Love Story. Our prayer today is taken from the Daily Word, entitled Guidance. I am grateful for the gift of spiritual intuition. When I need to make a decision or decide my next steps, my first thought might be to look for directions outside myself. Today, I make a new choice. I become quiet and receptive and connect with my still small voice. Fresh ideas and specific solutions arise in my mind, and as I place my oneness with God at the forefront of my mind, I find that oneness. If I have a question, I write it down, go into meditation, and trust my impressions. I invest some time in a spiritual search, using my intuition, aligning with that part of me that knows answers and inspiration are already at hand. I tap into an abundant storehouse of knowledge and discover more about who I am and who I am called to be along this journey of a lifetime. Scripture is from Exodus chapter 18, verse 19. Now listen to me. I will give you counsel, and God be with you. Amen. And now it's time for our first song by Denise Rosier, Between Us.
Love is alive in the space between us. Feel that love right now. God speaks out in the words between us. Hear those words right now. I am holy. You are holy. There is beauty between us. Spirit shines in the light between us. See that light right now. Peace is born in the good between us. Be that peace right now. I am holy. You are holy. There is between us. Love is alive in the space between us. Love is alive between us.
Thank you, Denise. That was a beautiful, inspirational song. And now it is time for Wendy Karr, licensed Unity teacher, to give us her message, Unity's great love story. After her talk, she will lead us in a meditation.
Good morning, Unity Spiritual Center of Windsor. I am so honored to be here. Reverend David, thank you for the invitation. Thank you for entrusting me with the lesson. To you and yours, I send you my love. I send you my condolences. I send you the faith and strength that will get you through this time. I'm sure it's different than past because of the pandemic, but I know that we will all get through this. And I know that you and your family are much loved. So usually, as part of the introduction, I share a bit about where I am in Unity, things I've done in Unity. But my 5 years in Windsor were short and impactful. I arrived as a student in 1991, and I was enrolled in the master's program at the U. Back in the days when you could go across to Wayne State without the benefit of a passport, you paid the international rate for tuition at Wayne State, but crossing the border was absolutely nothing. We didn't think twice about going across to Greektown on the bus for dinner. I was blessed second term. Someone named Arlene became the head secretary. And as we talked, we discovered that she had been to the Unity in Hamilton, which was where I was from. Not only was I from Unity Hamilton, but I had served in the kitchen as one of the staff, and I was the head housekeeper. And we got talking. And thanks to Arlene, I was able to join Unity of Windsor as you were then. And I want to publicly thank her for all the times she drove me to classes and Sunday services and everything else, and made sure that I was able to continue my spiritual path. Shortly after my arrival, we moved from Chalmers to Wyandotte Street. And I demonstrated that I could wield a paintbrush when needed. And then I married the board president. Some of you may recall my late husband, Bill. He passed in October of 2019. We were blessed. We were the first couple that Reverend Lila Hancock married, and we were the first couple to be married at the Wyandotte address. So I left Hamilton to study. I came back with a degree and a husband. So as I say, short and impactful years in my life. So I've titled my talk today, Unity's Great Love Story. We've inherited the love of Myrtle and Charles, and how their respective paths led them to a spiritual exploration that became the Unity movement. On the screen, you'll see one of our earliest logos, Be Still and Know That I Am God. On the 6th of August, 1845, Lucy and Marcus Page welcomed another daughter. They named her Mary Caroline. Eventually, Mary inherited the nickname of Myrtle, and that was how she remained the rest of her days. Myrtle lived in a family where tuberculosis was common, and she was told that to expect to be sickly, to not make plans, that it would probably be a very difficult life, but that was what God had planned for her. If you look in Myrtle's eyes in these pictures, you can see someone who is determined not to let things slow her down. She went to Teachers College at Oberlin College. I find it amazing to think that you could spend a year in school and be qualified to teach all the curriculum to all the age groups in a one-room schoolhouse. But that's how it was. At that time, the Board of Trustees for the Board of Education had the say over who could court you, and your contract would expire when you got married, in some cases when you got engaged. So she was facing the choice of being a teacher and a spinster for however long she had to live. Meanwhile, 9 years later, outside of St. Cloud, Minnesota, on the 22nd of August, 1854, Charles Sherlock Fillmore was born. His mother had come from Nova Scotia, so that's our Canadian connection. Charles had a skating accident. The details aren't quite clear. What he makes clear is that every doctor who saw him was amazed that he had survived the ministrations of the quack who had served before. And at that point, medicine was not as nice and neat as it is now. There were a number of things that were done to him that current medicine would say was probably more of a burden, was more likely to have killed him, but it didn't. Charles, though, was not able to go to school, and so he was homeschooled by a neighbor's mother. She schooled the two boys together. What I found interesting in the grand scheme of things was that the mother had also been a teacher trained at Oberlin College. So she had the same basic skill set that Myrtle had. So when she and Charles met much later in Denison, Texas, they had this commonality. And in fact, they met at a literary society meeting. Charles had done odd jobs and a number of positions over the years, every one of which I think he was able to bring a skill set or a knowledge set to the Unity movement once that got up and running. But he was at this literary society meeting, and he saw this vivacious woman across the room. And as she stood to do a recitation, something inside him said, "Charles, there's your wife." They corresponded for about 5 years before getting married. And on the day of their marriage, the local newspaper reported that Mrs. Page's students were absolutely, abjectly upset that they were protesting the vile Mr. Fillmore, who was taking their beloved teacher from them. Charles and Myrtle went to Colorado. Charles was involved with real estate at this point in his life, and Colorado, Pueblo to be exact, was the place to be. That was where the boomtown was. They had 2 sons in rapid succession, Lowell and Rickard. But as you can imagine, that carried a toll on Myrtle's body and on her health. By 1886, Myrtle was told that she was terminally ill. And one can imagine the frustration, the terror, and the heartache of the possibility of being separated from her family at a relatively young age. Lowell would later write that at that time in their lives, they had followed the path of the boom and bust to Kansas City, and that because it was a bigger city and certainly the stockyards of the agricultural business was, the hub, they had all these traveling salesmen that would come through town. And he would write about how many lotions and potions were in their family house that their mother had taken in because she was looking for a cure for herself. In 1886, we know that Myrtle attended a lecture by a New Thought teacher out of Chicago. The gentleman's name was E.B. Weeks. And the only line we know out of the lecture was what Myrtle took into her heart. "I am a child of God, and therefore I do not inherit sickness." I want you to think for a moment what that might have been like for her. This contradicted everything she had been taught as a child, that it was God's will that she suffer, that it was God's will that she be, frail and ill, that there was nothing she could do about it, and that she was to accept unflinchingly and uncomplainingly her lot in life. And yet she had this thought, "I am a child of God, and therefore I do not inherit sickness." And she took this into her quiet time. And she spent time asking her body's forgiveness that she would think anything but perfect health about it. And then she affirmed the full wholeness of God within every aspect of her body, something that we in Unity would later call a denial and an affirmation. Now, Charles was a very intellectual type. He read a lot. He wasn't, as far as we can tell, particularly engaged in spiritual things. We have no record of him attending church as a boy. Whether or not his mom taught him anything, we're not really sure. But Charles is watching what Myrtle is up to. He's seeing that her body is becoming stronger. He's seeing that she is becoming as she was when she was younger, that her body is responding to these words that she is speaking. And Charles starts reading, and he discovers that there's so many contradictions. He reads not only Christian theologists, but he reads from other traditions out of the East. And he says, in this Babel, I will go to headquarters. If I am spirit and this God they talk so much about is spirit, we can somehow communicate, or the whole thing is a fraud. And Charles writes that he spent time in the quiet, he called it in the silence, and that after about 3 months of sitting quietly for a regular period every day, he started to feel tingling in his body. And over time, he noticed that his hearing, which had been damaged in the skating accident, had improved, that his eyesight seemed to be improving, and that the pain that he experienced from the withered limb that the accident had left him with was also starting to heal and not hurt as much. Out of this, we get the beginnings of a spiritual movement. Now, we know that Myrtle was healed in body. And you say, well, Wendy, how do we know that with certainty? Well, in my books, we know it with certainty because 3 years after she initially heard the statement, she bore their third son, full term. And she would have been about 42 at the time. So one might have called her a mature mother at this point. So there was something in her body that had responded to these words of truth, to these ideas that contradicted everything she had been told. In 1892, so a couple years after that, Charles and Myrtle quietly and unto themselves made their dedication and covenant. By this point, they had started to run something that would eventually become the Unity movement. They had a society of silent help. They had a prayer ministry. But what they realized was they wanted to take it beyond that. And so they wrote this dedication and covenant. We, Charles Fillmore and Myrtle Fillmore, husband and wife, hereby dedicate ourselves, our time, our money, all we have and all we expect to have to the Spirit of truth, and through it to the Society of Silent Unity. It being understood and agreed that the said Spirit of truth shall render unto us an equivalent for this dedication in peace of mind, health of body, wisdom, understanding, love, life, and an abundant supply of all things necessary to meet every want without making any of these things the object of our existence. In the presence of the conscious mind of Christ, this 7th day of December, AD 1892, and then it is signed by Charles and Myrtle. Now, no one knew about this document. If their children knew, they didn't share. It was found in the archives as people were going through Myrtle's papers in 1942, so 50 years later. But that was the cornerstone of how they related to the Unity movement, that it was their demonstration of their understanding of their spiritual practices being shared with the world. It was never their intention to form a new church. They had hoped that these principles would be taken into other churches, and in the early years, all of the Sunday services were held at times that would not conflict with existing Sunday lessons and services. But eventually enough grassroots demand emerged that the Unity movement became as its own church. This is our first home, the Unity Tract Society. This picture is about 1893-ish, and it was on McGee Street. Charles is the gentleman towards the front, kind of in the middle, with a jacket and a beard. He eventually shaved the beard for a talent show where he played an Irish washerwoman, I'm not sure I want to know about that, but everyone liked him clean shaven, so he stayed that way, and that's how most of us recollect him. By the 1920s, this is what Unity looked like on Tracy Avenue. There was a church, there was administration, there was a garage, there was the Unity Inn, which was one of the first vegetarian restaurants in the Kansas City area. There was a printing press. They had their own mailing area, and they had some apartments for some of the staff, including the Fillmores. So as you can see, it took up most of a city block. So out of the love of two people, out of the search of these two people to seek something that they understood within themselves as a love of God, as a greater understanding of the wisdom of the teachings of Jesus, we have the Unity movement. So Unity truly is a great love story. It's very rare that you find an organization that has the feminine and the masculine represented so equally. Now, yes, we may have more writings of Charles because he really was the spokesperson. But Myrtle was the head of Children in Wee Wisdom, which was children's publication for 100 years, and of Silent Unity during the earliest years. So her heart and her intuitiveness, really came into the Unity movement. And at the end of it all, it really was a family event in the early days. The picture in front of you in the back row, we see the sons in birth order, left to right, Lowell, Rickard, and Royal. And in the front, we see Myrtle and Charles and Grandma Fillmore, as she was known. All of the family members took part in the movement. That's another talk altogether, but briefly, they each brought the love of their own skill set to the movement. Lowell in administration, Rickard in design and architecture. It was he that designed Unity Village, which many of us appreciate and admire the layout of. And Royal was the first to suggest that perhaps some acreage where people could get away from the clamor of the city would be useful. Grandma Fillmore wasn't too big on these teachings, but she was the one that ensured the kids when they were younger were taken care of. And she kind of put up with Charles inviting everybody to her house for dinner after Sunday lessons. So she was there to support the physical nature of the Unity movement. So with that, I've given you a very fast-paced history of our movement, where we've come from. Unity isn't in the hands of the Fillmores anymore. Like so many other corporations, after 4 generations, there was a lack of interest. And now we have opportunities for everyone to serve. But it's a wonderful legacy of 2 people who came together as husband and wife, found a spiritual path, and out of their spiritual path, blessed the world. So what are our lessons from Charles and Myrtle? What gifts do I have? Am I willing to share these gifts with the world? How do these gifts align with the gifts of people in my circle? What will sharing my gifts look like? And importantly, what am I willing to receive? The dedication and covenant included that they would receive something for the service that they were offering. And my weekly wonder, take a look at your own life. Is there something that you think is too small to be of worth? Take a few minutes, half an hour even. Perhaps you have a skill or a knowledge or something that the world is calling for. Perhaps we're so used to it being monetized that we overlook it. Perhaps we think that we have to be a great cultural star for it to be worth something. It may just be smiling over your mask at someone, having your eyes crinkle up in a way that they know that you see them in spite of everything. With that thought, let us prepare for our time of meditation. And I'll just invite you to do a little wiggle Allow my words to be your words, my voice to be your voice. As we join together in this community, heart to heart, hand to hand, soul to soul. Breathing into that space within ourselves, within our physical bodies, where we feel that connection, where we feel that oneness, where we feel God, whatever name or idea you have for that eternal, universal oneness. And breathing into this space, we hold Reverend David and his family in light and love. We give thanks for the life of his father, for the blessings that he brought to this world. We know that love is eternal. We just breathe into that and send our love and support. And in this consciousness of the oneness that we are, we bring to mind anyone for whom we are holding a prayer request, any situation that is wrestling with our heart, any relationship that is calling for healing. We take time to just hold it gently in our minds, hold it gently in our hearts. Allow it to be infused with love, with light, with order, with strength. Allowing this to flow in, through, and as us. And in this consciousness, we send our love, our strength, our order, our faith to the world. Charles Fillmore said that love is actually what gravity is. It is Mother Earth holding us. And we see metaphorically the idea of the hands of the world greeting us, enfolding us, loving us, enfolding every spot that is calling for healing. Enfolding every area, every person who is calling for prosperity. Knowing that this gift of our consciousness is a great gift. And we share it openly and willingly. And for the teachers who have gone before us, for the Fillmores and early Unity writers and lecturers, for the theologians who kept the Christian message open, for our way shower Jesus, and all who have participated in this spiritual understanding and unfoldment. We are so grateful. And for this time together, for this opportunity to come together in community, we say thank you and amen. Thank you for having me.
Tiny drops of water bouncing on my roof, drumming out a song of love, pounding out the truth. You send them to remind the hush of a sunset. You get my attention, I'm listening. It's a private conversation, you and I in a one vibration. And oh, it moves me so amazing. Every day your goodness finds me. Every day your heart beats true. I'm alive in the light and the glory, amazed by the sight of you. This love is everlasting, and you find a way to show me every day, every day. There is no one like you. Every day. There is no one like you. Every day. You love me. Every day. You love me. Every day your goodness finds me. Every day your heart beats true. I'm alive in the light and the glory, amazed by the sight of you. This love is everlasting, and you find a way to show me every day, every day, oh, every day, every day, every day.
Thank you, Wendy. That was a wonderful talk. I enjoyed it so much. And can't we be so grateful that Myrtle Fillmore had that determination to rise up and heal herself after hearing that she was a child of God and did not inherit sickness. I'm also glad that you included their covenant with their own signatures on it, demonstrating that they were dedicated to the unity movement. Thank you again, Wendy. I'd also like to thank Denise Rosier for her second song, another beautiful performance. I would also like to thank everyone out there who continues to support this ministry with your time and generous donations of tithes and love offerings, especially during these challenging times. We could not continue to provide our programs and services without your support. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts. There are several ways to donate. We accept e-transfer or PayPal, sent to unitycenterwindsor@gmail.com. You can also click the blue donate button at the top of our website, which will take you to Canada Helps, a safe and secure site where you can make a one-time or recurring donation using a credit or debit card. Or you can send a check or money order to our office. For further information, visit our website at www.unityofwindsor.org. And thank you and bless you for your loving and generous support. Here at Unity Spiritual Center of Windsor, we are exploring different ways to provide more online services, classes, and opportunities to meet virtually. Information about all of the upcoming classes and events can be found on our website at www.unityofwindsor.org. If you do not receive our weekly newsletter, please contact us and we will add you to our email list. And here we are coming to the end of our service today. I would like to thank you again for joining us. And before we close with a short prayer of gratitude and our prayer for protection, I would like to remind you of our vision, mission, and statement of being, which are found on your screen. First is our vision statement: a world powerfully transformed through the growing movement of shared spiritual awakening. And our mission statement: we inspire and empower spiritual growth to awaken us and transform the world. And our statement of being: I am a dynamic center of the Christ light, mighty to unfold my good and radiate that good to all. Let's open our hearts and minds in gratitude as we close by speaking out loud or silently to ourselves our love offering prayer, followed by the prayer for protection. Divine love, in me and through me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God. And the prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds us. I am light. The love of God enfolds us. I am love. The power of God protects us. I am power. The presence of God watches over us. I am presence. Wherever we are, God is. I am divine. Thank you, Wendy, for that very interesting and informative talk today. I would also like to thank Denise Rosier, who was our musician, and Michael Karloff for the opening and closing music. I would like to remind our congregation that conversations with the licensed Unity teacher on Zoom will be after the service today at 11:30. You are all invited. You can go to the unityofwindsor.org, which is the website, and find connection instructions to get to that Zoom site. Conversations with the L.U.T. Goodbye, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Have a wonderful week.